Famous first words to start off a webinar like this. I was on mute. I apologize, everyone. Welcome to another live webinar here with Interact. We're very excited about today's topic. We're going to be talking with Denise Shields from Freedom Forever, where we are going to be honing in on building a positive company culture. Now, if you're not a customer of Interact already, let me tell you a little bit about what we do and who hangs out with us on a daily basis using our software as an intranet. Interact powers the world's best digital workplaces. Our award-winning intranet software transforms how enterprises communicate and connect with their people, driving greater engagement and productivity. We're passionate strategists, project managers, technical experts, designers, and trainers, and we thrive on removing the complexity of your intranet projects. Over the last 15 years, we've launched over 1,500 feature-rich intranets and amassed more than 60 customer awards. As you can see, our customers include Sony PlayStation, Domino's, Levi's, and so many more. If you're interested to learn more, you can visit our website at interactsoftware.com or stay tuned to the end of this webinar where we'll have more ways you can connect with us. So with that, I do have a little bit of housekeeping. I know you didn't come here to hear me speak, so I'm happy to get through this next little part. We want this webinar to feel as live as and interactive as possible. So if you have a question or if you want to say something in the chat, I can see some have already told us where they're chiming in from. So go ahead, use that chat. Tell us where you're connecting with us from today. Also, I want to shine light on the Q&A panel because that's where we're going to ask all of your questions go to. So if you happen to accidentally ask a question inside the chat, it may disappear because our production team in the back will move it to the Q&A area. But to help make that efficient, use the Q&A area where we'll be keeping an eye on it. And at the end of this webinar, we'll bring Denise back to ask her all of the questions that you're throwing at us. Now, if you don't have a question, don't worry. Visit that Q&A panel because you have the chance to review all of the different questions that are coming in from everyone on the webinar today, and you can upvote them. And we'll be using that as a priority order for asking Denise any questions that you may have. Another thing to say is that we are live, and of course, technical issues happen, and we hope that they're not on our end. But in the case that you lose audio or visual, usually refreshing your browser will bring back all of that good stuff. So in the case you have any technical issues on your end, try refreshing. If you still can't get it to work, use the chat. Our production and the team on the back end will try their best to see what they can do for you. And with that, I do want to run a test poll because, again, we're going to try to keep this as interactive as possible. And the production team is going to load our very first poll just to get you familiar with how it looks, how it feels. So if you want to read the question, give it a good answer, hit submit. And we just want to make sure that, that everything is working as expected before we go into the live event. So with that, I would love to bring to the floor our very own customer and great partner, Denise Shields. Now, Denise Shields is the Communications and Engagement Manager at Freedom Forever. Now, Denise is an award-winning content creator who uses the power of story to build culture, inspire individuals, and motivate employees. Denise is super passionate about making sure people enjoy life at work and has revamped culture at Freedom Forever by introducing a culture committee to create fresh ideas and inspiration to keep 2,000 plus workforce engaged, happy, and motivated. Denise, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today. And thank you so much for taking the time to share all of your insights and wisdom as we learn a little bit more about building a positive company culture. So I will hand you the virtual stage, and I'll be back at the end to answer any questions that the community has.
Thank you so much, Greg. I'm so excited to be here. So culture, building it, getting our employees engaged. Let's dive in. So for me, today we're going to talk a little bit about employee engagement and why it matters. We're going to speak about the culture committee that we created at Freedom Forever, how we're using and integrating technology in our communications. And then towards the end, I'm going to give you some tips to get started to begin building that positive culture. So, a little bit about me. I have written for local newspapers. I've worked as on air talent, I've had positions in public relations, corporate communications, and I came on to Freedom Forever in February of 2021. I was hired as an intranet manager. And then over time, I was promoted to communications and engagement manager. I love culture and engagement. I've researched it a bunch, and I just get so excited to talk about it. But what you should really know about me is I'm a passionate storyteller and I love creating connections with people. So, about Freedom Forever was founded on the simple principle that people should have more affordable and cleaner options to meet their energy needs. Since 2011, they have been laser focused on residential solar installations, which deliver best in class engineering, procurement, and construction, all while providing an unmatched 5-star level of customer service. Um, Across the country. Right now, we're servicing 29 states, and we have 39 branch locations. In terms of our employees in 2021, we had 2,005 employees, and we're projecting by the end of 2022 that we're going to have more than 4,000. The growth that we've experienced has been really astounding. In fact, we've been on Inc.'s fastest growing company list 5 years in a row, which is pretty remarkable. So let's talk about employee engagement. I was researching employee engagement when I was getting my master's last year, and I came across this blog by Corey Mosley called 5 Reasons Why Employee Engagement Matters. And I felt like this quote really was clear and succinct and really told you what is an engaged employee? We say it all the time, right? We want employees to be engaged, but what does that really mean? And what he says is an engaged employee is someone that is dedicated to their work and the goals and values of the company they work for. Essentially, they show up and are involved not just because of their salary, but because they're invested emotionally or otherwise. So, getting back to those 5 reasons of why employee engagement matters, let's take a look at them. Engaged employees boost productivity. That makes sense, right? If you're happy at your job, you love what you're doing, the output that you're putting out is obviously going to be more than someone who's disengaged. Second, employee engagement increases customer satisfaction. Again, it makes sense. If I'm happy at my job, that happiness and value I feel and the appreciation that I feel, that's going to translate and that's going to show up in my interactions with our customers. You'll retain your best people. If someone's happy at their job, they're not going to be looking for another opportunity. And employee engagement also enhances company culture. And again, if I'm happy at my job, I'm spreading that happiness with my coworkers that I interact with every day. And if that, that's a domino effect, right? So if that keeps occurring, then all of us will feel happy and feel engaged and improve our culture. And finally, employee engagement is a symptom of success. So what does that mean? That means that that employee feels valued at their job and they feel like what they're doing matters. And honestly, there's no better feeling than that when you're at work. So, if you read the intro to today's webinar, you've seen these numbers. Low employee engagement costs the US economy between 400 and $500 billion annually. That number is huge. And it always, when I think about that, we can see it, right? If I'm disengaged at my job, I'm not really producing well. Um, I feel terrible about what I'm doing. So maybe I'm like half paying attention to what my responsibilities are. I'm probably checked out, either looking for another job or I'm hoping that I'm going to get fired, which I'm not, by the way. So then that person leaves. The company has to put an ad to get a new person. They also have to take time, once they bring that person on, there's new hire orientation. That's all costing money. They have to get someone from that department to help train this new person, which takes away from their job. So you can see how all of these related costs build up and cost money. So now, with that being said, and we know how much it costs for employees to be disengaged, I'm going to put a question out to all of you. What percentage of executives do you believe think that employee engagement is critical to their company's success? Okay. Well, thank you. I see the responses have come in. Um, let's take a look at the number. 71%. So 71% seems like a good number, right? I think that it should be more than that. So now let's go to the next question. What percentage of employees are not engaged in the workplace? What do you think? Would it surprise you to know that 85% of employees don't feel engaged in the workplace? Think about that. 71% of executives agree that it's important, yet 85% of employees are not feeling it. Look at that disconnect. That really tells us a lot. So now I'm going to ask one more question. What percentage of employees said they would work harder if they felt more appreciated at work? 69%. 69% said they'd work harder. Now, the final statistic that I want to show you is this one. Research shows that good company and culture will increase revenue of a business by 4%. So now, do you think if we go back to that first number with those executives, that 71% said it was critical, don't you think that number would be a lot higher if they knew that they could grow their revenue by 4%? I think it would. So we have to talk about COVID, right? We've all been dealing with it, but for all of us, in the workforce, it did have a huge impact on how we work. People were working from home. Now everyone's remote when everything shut down. At Freedom Forever, we had a very popular game room at our HQ office in Temecula. Um, it's empty, laying to waste because no one is in the office. Those water cooler conversations that always happen in the workplace are non existent now because people are working from home. And for Freedom Forever specifically, at that time, we did not have a company intranet. We have a very robust email platform that we use, but we didn't really have one central location where all of our important resources, standard operating procedures, tools for people to do their jobs, we didn't have one channel, formal channel for all of those things. So Freedom Forever began changing their culture. So in December 2020, they began evaluating implementing a company-wide intranet. I was brought on in February of 2021 to vet intranet platforms and implement a new intranet. And in June, we launched our intranet. Now, what I have to tell you is that we signed our contract with Interact in April, the end of April, and our directive from our CEO was how fast can you get it up? We need it up, we need it now, and we need an SOP library. So for us at that time, we only had we everyone had SOPs in a different way. Some people were calling a PowerPoint presentation an SOP. Some people had a memo, they were calling that an SOP, and they were shared all over the place in shared folders, people's computers. So he realized that that was sort of something that we really needed, is to have all of these processes in one place. So our team created an SOP template and met with every single department head and said, "We need you to pigeonhole your SOPs into this template." And again, we did that in 6 weeks. Then our internet launches, it's our soft launch. And as you can imagine, the SOP library took us an extraordinary amount of time. Plus, we're trying to get basic things up on the site to, get our people engaged. But an employee poll shows us that we still have some work to do with our communication. So once we saw the results of that poll, I went to my manager and we took it to leadership to start a culture committee. So the idea was the culture committee, the objective was to create a group of people from different locations with varying titles, from different departments to come together to increase our employee engagement. We also wanted to promote connectivity through our new intranet, the Freedom Forum. Finally, we wanted to give more employees a chance to give us feedback and input on the communication initiatives that we were putting out there, in hopes to retain and sustain our employees. The application process, the questions, it was short and sweet. Why do you want to be on the culture committee? And can you get your manager's approval? So we launched in October of 2021. We had our first meeting and we had more than 30 people sign up to be in our committee. So for us, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about our member commitment and how our meetings take shape. So we only require a 6-member commitment. That's what we ask if you want to be on the committee. Initially, we thought about making it longer, but because we have such a large organization, we really wanted to give as many people as possible an opportunity to participate. And at the same time, if they felt like it wasn't for them, then it was 6 months and they can, roll out and do something else. We meet for an hour every month. um, I create an agenda of ideas that myself and my team have come up with. And then at that meeting, we pitch these ideas to the committee, for feedback and for additional ideas. And that's sort of how these things take shape so we can launch them to our employees. Every 6 months, we invite all the employees as we get those new members and even the ones that choose to stay on, which a lot do. We ask them to pitch their ideas of how they think we could build upon our culture. And what we recently started doing is if we have an idea that's presented to us, I've been asking the person that presented that idea to co chair that initiative. And I feel like that's so important because we're not all in the same place. I'm in New York, some people are in Charleston, some are in California. So the more people that we have that are promoting these initiatives, the more people that are going to take part because they have a stake in the game and they are realizing, again, they're engaged because their idea is being put forth. What they said, what they brought to this committee matters. So here's a look at some of the things that we've done in just under a year. So the top left corner, that was our welcome back to work when our offices reopened. We had a week-long celebration, and one of the items was a ping pong tournament at HQ. We just recently changed the way that we our developers created a new way for our installs to happen, a new way for our pipeline to work. So it's called Lightspeed. So on May the 4th, we had Lightspeed Day where people dressed up like Star Wars characters. Um, International Women's Day. That's in the top right. Um, we encouraged people to write something nice about one of their female colleagues, and then we took all of those quotes, we added photos and put them on our forum, our intranet. Thanksgiving, we did a Thanksgiving cookbook, which was, asking people to send recipes, and then they could download it. It lives on the site. We've had a Halloween costume contest. We do spirit days. One photo you'll see is from our sports themes, wear your favorite team jersey. Our HR team recently had an environment, a beach cleanup because the environment is so important to us. And in the bottom right hand corner, on America Recycles Day, we basically encouraged folks to take some garbage around their office and build something cool out of it. So we had a structure building contest. So that's what those Christmas trees are. And then the other thing that we started implementing is something called Freedom After Dark. And this is where we interview people that work at Freedom Forever and they tell us something cool that they do after work. So we have one gentleman who, during the pandemic, decided he was going to live in his van. He bought a conversion van and he converted the whole thing. It has a bed, it has stoves, it has solar panels on the top. Then one of our employees is a self taught makeup artist. She does scary effects. Right now, I'm working with an electrician in Las Vegas, and he builds out custom cars. And these stories are really great because with a commenting feature that's part of Interact's service, we can comment on it, and we're creating connections between people, even though they may live in different parts of the country. So, how's it going? Honestly, it's going great. Every month, I get new requests from people asking for them to join the committee. The feedback that this group provides on the initiatives that we're doing is wonderful. Besides, them helping us lead initiatives, we use them when we have our spirit days. We'll give like a small gift card to the person with the best photo. They help with the voting. It's the best meeting I have every month to be on a call with people that are as passionate about engagement and wanting to create this wonderful culture. There's really nothing like it. So what's working? How we communicate not only the fun stuff, but also our business initiatives. So one of the things that we recently started doing is we have two, probably more than two, but two biweekly calls that really garner a lot of folks. Um, and we send recap emails, and recently we started changing the way we focus them. So now, when you get that recap email, it's broken into sections. This is what you need to know. This is what you need to act on, and this is what you need to share. And when we relaunched our intranet a couple of months ago, we created our homepage in the same fashion. And that really, we feel like, really highlights, okay, this is what you need to know is coming, but this is what I need you to do. And then this is what you should share with your teams. And we felt like that was such a simplified way to really make people understand in what way they need to pay attention to what we're sending to them. The other thing we're doing is we're using the technology that Interact provides to really up our game. If there is a process change, something changing on a work instruction or a standard operating procedure, we're implementing mandatory reads. And they're great because we can do them by department, and then we can go back and we can provide that feedback to those department leaders to know who read something that they needed to, who didn't. And the other thing we can do is set up that notification if they haven't read it and sort of nudge them with a reminder like, hey, listen, you still have to come back and read this. The other thing that we're using on the Interact platform are forums, and we're actually using them as timelines. So, especially within the last year, when we made this huge process change to the way that we are getting our installs from sale to PTO, um, we have this new platform and they're basically saying, okay, on this date, this feature went live or the site is down. And people are subscribing to those feeds. So they're getting real time updates to what's changing with our technology, which has been amazing. The other thing that we implemented recently is that anniversary widget. And I've worked with the talent and HR teams and with the members of our culture committee and just said, hey, if you see that it's somebody's anniversary, wish them a happy anniversary. We created a short video to show people how to do it. Um, and that means something to people. I get, when I wish someone a happy anniversary, I always get a really nice message in response. But let's face it, I don't know 2,200 people the 2,200 plus people that work at Freedom Forever. So it's nicer if it comes from somebody else. So that's why we're reaching out to other stakeholders to sort of make that even nicer. The other thing that's working out really great is the commenting feature on our pages. People are really good about saying, this process has been updated. This needs to be changed. I think the contact person might be wrong, and then we can make those changes pretty quickly. The other thing we started doing is using Microsoft Teams. So, as I said earlier, we have these two big meetings that happen bi weekly. We started posting all of our communication initiatives, our contests in those channels because that's where those people are. For our branch managers call, we want to get that message out to them. That's where they're at. We also have an HQ Teams channel, so we post things for our HQ folks there. The culture committee, I'll post there just to remind them, hey, look, this is coming up. We're just using every tool. That we have at our disposal to communicate and to get the message out to the people that work with us. The other thing that we have is we use EdApp, which is an learning and development platform, and they have a something that we call the grid where people can post photos. And what we did when we revamped our intranet pages, our homepage, we embedded this on our homepage because what we found is our field and branch employees sort of live on the grid. Our HQ employees were living on the intranet, and we want to push those two groups together. If there's nothing else that I can do, and during my time at Freedom Forever, if I can create a stronger connection between HQ and our field employees, nothing would make me happier. And using this, we just had our summer wellness campaign where people were posting photos of them walking and exercising. And so a lot of our HQ folks are posting on the grid. Plus, it's mixed in with our installs that are happening. And it's really been a nice way to sort of mesh every group of employees that we have together. So, what's our goal? To just keep engaging and finding ways to engage our diverse workforce. So as I said earlier, we have HQ employees, we have branch employees, we have field employees, and just keep finding ways to fill that gap. So to date, we have created different home pages. Um, to build upon our culture. We have an HQ homepage. So if those folks log in, they see that. And then we have a branch homepage for those folks. And we've targeted content based on what they need and what they have to do their jobs. The other thing that we are sort of focused on next is how do we up our game with our field crews? So, we're working with our branch managers, because some of the things we did, so we did that sports themed spirit day where you can wear your jersey, but our guys and girls in the field, they have a uniform they have to wear. So that doesn't really make sense for them. So it's my job to figure out, well, how can we do something that they can take part in? And that's so for me, those conversations are happening with the branch managers. We want to run a food drive. What does that look like? How can we get them that they're able to participate so they feel more connected? And that's really something that I'm really looking towards in the next 6 months. So, some tips to get started. You have to collaborate with a diverse group in your organization if you want to build your culture. And look, honestly, it's not going to work if your executive leadership doesn't care about culture. I've been in places like that, but I can tell you at Freedom Forever, they do, and it matters. And when it does, it's awesome. The other thing you want to do is keep finding ways to celebrate your employees, their achievements, their milestones. Again, those employee stories. We're looking at simple things we can do because any internal comms team is always stretched. Um, how can we maybe create a simple form where they can add a photo of someone in their family? We're thinking about our sort of next plan for the intranet is a family corner where we can have back to school photos. Maybe your child wins an award. Someone mentioned maybe having like a coloring contest. We'll come up with some solar sort of poster that they can color in, and we can have a contest. Again, finding ways to make your employees engage with each other, connect them to each other. Um, that's definitely the way to go. And then using that multi-channel communication strategy to meet employees where they're at. Our guys and girls on the roof, they're not on their computers. So we have to find a better way to get our communication to them. And so they understand that they know what they need to do, what we're working on, and to engage them so they feel more part of the things that are happening. And please, please, please fight your way through imposter syndrome. We've all, I'm sure, done research on things. Um, but at the end of the day, you're going to try things that don't work. There's no book on this. But the fact that you keep trying, you'll see what works, you'll see what doesn't work, and then you just keep moving forward. And as long as you keep trying, I promise you the results will be amazing. Thank you.
Denise, that's absolutely amazing. I've seen so many questions come through. So I would love to dive into some of our most rated questions. So I'm going to just open up our tab here. Now I'll put the questions up on the screen, and we will be able to answer them together. So
Sure.
from Jen, how do you engage employees working from home in these activities? So I'm from the beginning of your, this is a question I had as well. And maybe even before I get you to answer this, Denise, I did see a question somewhere come through, and I'll just throw it in here. Can you explain to us the dynamic of your workforce? So are we a hybrid workforce? Would you consider that, or are we in? I see that it looks like you're working from home.
I
Um,
am. I am working from home. So overall, Freedom Forever, the number of people working at home is not a lot. We have people that are out in the field on roofs. We have folks that are in our branch locations. We have folks at HQ, and then we do have a handful of people that work from home. But I can tell you that in terms of how do we engage people from home, we're having a National Dog Day is on August 26th. We're
oh,
doing picks with your pets. Everyone can take part in that. You know what? The other thing we do, we're using Simple Booth, and that's a platform where we can send a QR code to everyone. And then you can take a picture with your pet. We have a design background that's branded, and then we share those photos as well. So we're using a lot of different tools to make it easy for everyone to participate.
that's fantastic. So I guess not everybody can participate in everything, but you have found ways to at least try to make it as inclusive as possible.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Um, oh, I So to go to a question from Barb's asking, you have multiple locations. Are you trying to replicate the ideas that are promoted in all locations? Curious if not, if some locations feel left out. I think maybe this is a maybe replicated, sorry, a duplicate question from maybe we just answered this. Is there anything to add on a location base?
Well, look, that's why what we've done is we've made it a 6-month commitment in terms of like the committee representation. We've sort of said, okay, it's only going to be 6 months because we want other branches. Um, I am not getting any feedback that any branch feels sort of underrepresented. I will tell you that even people that have sort of funneled on the committee, funneled off since we started, the branch managers know that I wanna make things better. So I'm always encouraging people, even if you're not on the committee, even if just Teams message me. If you have an idea, I wanna use it and I wanna go with it. So I think that I've opened that line of communication that people understand that I wanna do something about this and make it better. And that is really, I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from that.
Great. That's amazing. A question from Trisha. Is the site your enterprise social network, or do you have something like Yam or a similar application?
We do not use Yammer. For us, we have, the Interact platform is our intranet. We use EdApp for our LMS. We use MailChimp for our emails. Again, we use Simple Booth. We've used ClickSend to send text messages, and we're using Teams. So we're using a
Great.
lot of different things.
Right, right. That's great. And from an employee experience standpoint, I'm assuming every channel is understood by every employee. So you found seamless ways to make them not seem like different channels. Um, is
Yeah,
that the
and
case?
that was sort of an example with the grid. So again, it started that HQ employees, they went to the forum. Field and branch
Which is
employees were
interact.
looking at the grid. Yes, the forum, I'm sorry, with the Interact platform. So our
Good.
intranet, that was HQ was going there. Field and branch, they were going to the grid. And that was one of the reasons why we integrated the grid onto our intranet because we
Great.
wanted to bring those two things together. But then when we have people posting for our contest, we have them post on the grid because we want that audience to be front and center, and then it pulls through our intranet. So we're doing a balancing act.
Love it. Well, and then this is a great segue. I'm going to skip a few questions here because I think this makes sense to ask next. What is the grid? So if we have
Sure.
interact as the form, and then you have the grid, what app are we using to?
Sure. That is on something called EdApp. That's where all of our training is happening, where we build out our training for all of our teams. And there is a platform on it. It came with that feed that our installers and our branch employees have been used to using. They can post photos there. So that's why, because that's sort of a learned behavior and they are comfortable there, we left that, but then we pulled it over onto the forum to sort of, cross pollinate those two groups.
So users of interact using the form can see what's happening over in the grid, which is a separate
Our
app.
learning and development app that we're using.
Very good. So you've created a little ecosystem of a few tools to bring it all together, full
Yep.
circle.
Yep.
Wonderful. Shifting gears into the world of mandatory reads. Now, we know you mentioned them a few times throughout this
Hmm.
presentation. And for anyone who's not a customer, I'm not sure if a mandatory read is a industry term, but to interact, it is what we refer to as a page or a piece of content that you must read or acknowledge that you've seen it. So I'll ask the question from Veronica again. I'd be interested to hear more on how you use mandatory reads for what kinds of things in your communications.
Sure. For us, it is for a process change. If there's something big that's happening and it's going to change the way that you do your job, then you need to know about it. So what happens is we build that content area on the intranet, on our forum, and then I will on the back end, I'm able to assign it to the groups based on the distro list that I get for the email, and then they get a notification. It comes up on a box at the top of their screen that says, you are required to read this. And once they've done done reading it, then they check the box, and then I can see on the back end who's completed it and who hasn't very easily. I can run that report and then I can share it with our leadership.
That's fantastic. And I know that coming very soon, the mandatory read is evolving even further when it comes to the Interact platform, because our new editing experience you'll be able to actually change what that mandatory read means. So if you were to do a culture, check in, or maybe a dedicated page to diversity and equity and inclusion in your own organization, we wouldn't really want to do a mandatory read on that, but we would probably want to have commitment to from the employee base on the page that they just read. So almost like a virtual signature that I've read this and I agree that working here should be the most diverse and inclusive place on the planet. So so the new editor will bring this whole capability to you, which is fantastic. So world of
So cool.
possibilities coming soon. All right. Sophie had a question. Let's throw that up on the screen. So how many people are working on your intranet, i.e. updating content and coming up with ideas like wear your team shirt day?
Okay, so I am the intranet manager in addition to my other responsibilities. That one sort of hasn't gone away. I can tell
Sure.
you that there are a couple of teams that we've given editing access to, and they take care of their own content areas. For example, our construction engineering team, they are moving at the speed of light, updating their processes, so they have the keys to their section. And then we also do that in terms of we have key contacts pages, and sometimes those change pretty rapidly. So what I've actually started doing is I meet with our directors of operation once a month, tell me who's changed. So I would say, if I had a guess, I would say probably maybe 85% is me. And then the rest is other folks from the organization that are keeping their places sort of, up to date. Just because, again, I'm not going to know if someone in our account management team, for example, has moved on necessarily. So they have the access to sort of those key contact pages and again, their department areas. In terms of like the ideas, honestly, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll look up those national calendars and I'll say, okay, what's coming up? And then I also look at stuff that's tied to the environment because that's very important for us at Freedom Forever. It's something we're really passionate about, obviously. So I look for things like that. And then I bring it back to the group. And some days I'll just give options, like I said, okay, a couple of ideas that came up in just a general conversation was, well, a Hawaiian shirt day or pick with your pet, a pets sort of theme day. And then our branding team came to me and said, hey, the 26th is National Dog Day. Okay. So we can use it internally and we could potentially use it externally. So I went back to the group and I said, okay, just saying we could do this. And they were like, and I said, I'm leaving it to a vote. And they put a heart on teams if they want to go with a specific idea. And sorry, Hawaiian Day, picks puppies and babies always win.
Right, right. Can't beat the heart on teams. I love that idea, actually. Never thought of actually putting two threads together to say, now you can vote. This is a wonderful idea. I know there's lots of apps we can connect into Teams to do some voting, but that's a quick and free, easy way to do it. That's good.
Mhm.
I like that. All right. Going to your committee. So Emma had a question around declining committee members. So I know that this is doing a shout out to say join the committee. You said you had 30 applicants. I'm assuming all 30, are they part of the team, or did you have to decline a few of those? And if you did, how
So
did you do it?
here's what happened. Initially, when we were planning, we said, okay, 24. And I've worked somewhere before where there was a culture committee and we had 15. And it was like, if we have 24, that's a lot of people on a call. How are we going to manage it? Whatever. And honestly, we don't turn anyone away. So right now, I think we're at 35. And what I've done is that I present a topic. I give time. Everyone knows there's time. Put your responses in our Teams chat for any ideas. But then I always invite people to speak. Some people aren't comfortable speaking. But as long as someone wants to be there and they have their manager's approval, I just don't have it in my heart to turn anyone away. I mean, I potentially could and say, listen, we don't have the bandwidth this time, but please, I'll keep your application. But for us, I've been able to moderate the meeting successfully, so I take everybody.
I love it. I think this is a great approach. And I do, if you're not having full participation of everybody at all times, you're able to call on different skills for various reasons for things you need. So that's fantastic. I think, but good on you having 30 applications. I think, it's not always heard of to have so much love for these extra things. Most people feel pretty stuck with what they have in their full-time job already. So that's great to work in an organization that has a lot of want to do extra, which is beautiful. Going to a question from Sophie. Do you duplicate content between Microsoft Teams and the Interact or intranet platform?
Sure. So what happens is, for example, Pick with Your Pet Day is August 26th. I use the graphic image that we create for our email, and I use that as the banner, for the header on the page in the intranet. We have a culture committee section where I sort of keep all of these things, and I write all the details. So basically, you're going to take a pic with your pet. Please be in the photo. Some people don't want to be, and that's fine, but we really want to see your face too. And then we'll say, and you have to post that photo on the grid. And then our committee, so I bake it out. The committee is going to vote. Whoever has the cutest picture or whatever the committee thinks is the best picture, you're going to get a $25 gift card. And we also have Simple Booth where you can just go on and take a fun picture with your pet, from your phone, from your computer, what have you. Then what I do is I go to every single meeting, those big meetings I talked about. I copy that image, I copy the content, and I put it there. I put it in the culture committee chat. I put it in our branch manager biweekly chat, our ops biweekly chat. I put it on our HQ Teams channel. Again, trying to reach everyone where they're at. And then
Sure.
whoever wins, then I post the winner in those same places.
Fantastic. That makes sense. All right. Trisha has a question around pulse surveys, which I personally love. How often do you do pulse surveys? And I guess maybe to add to that question, just as a selfish interest of mine, how do you constantly measure some of the? So let's answer the pulse survey question on its own. But how do you measure the success of any of the committee's efforts?
Sure. So, we have not done a pulse survey since the last survey we did, which was right before we launched the committee. What I can tell you in terms of engagement, we have seen a steady growth again, especially with our summer wellness program. So that was something that we ran for 6 weeks. Um, and there was all different levels of winning. So basically, you had to fill out a tracker form telling how much mileage you had, and you had to post at least 2 photos during that week. Weekly winners won an Apple Watch. The overall winners were put in a raffle to either win a Peloton bike or a treadmill. This is United Healthcare dollars that our HR team had. And then we had a branch winner. So after all those people were sort of put in the first 2 raffles, then our branch winner, if they won a Fitbit, and everyone at their branch is receiving a Fitbit. So the engagement in that contest, I can tell you in 6 weeks, we had almost 300 people, like 300 entries on our trackers. And we had nearly 50 people participate, which may not sound like a lot, but I can tell you the first time we ran our Halloween costume, we had 12 entries. So the fact that we've gone from 12 to 50, and you can see the photos and people engaging with the photos. So I think we can see this last one was sort of our most successful one yet. But I am currently working as part of my new job, in terms of engagement. I am working with our HR team on building out stay interviews, and those questions, and it's not just about the fun stuff, right? It's we're working, we're going to be working together on onboarding, how to make that better, all of these things to sort of get us ideally, where our potential is.
That's fantastic. I absolutely am a fan of stay interviews. I think we've been hearing this a lot more since the conversation of the Great Resignation has taken place on finding out why our employees like interview them before they say they're leaving, so that we can understand how we can do it better rather than large survey. So I love that. That's fantastic.
And I think that people, especially like on Indeed and that sort of thing, the people that are going to complain are always going to be the loudest.
Yeah,
So we have to combat that because there's a lot of people that stay and love where they work. And we should
correct.
highlight that. Another thing that I really want to try is I really want to do something called My Freedom Story, where we talk about the people that have been promoted through the organization and what that looked like. And I'm hoping to tie it into our core values. It's like sort of one of the 100 things that I have running around in my head that I want to implement.
I know the feeling. I absolutely know the feeling. That's amazing. I can't wait to see if when you get that up and running. I know you will eventually. That sounds wonderful. So Denise, there's a lot of questions here. I mean, we could spend the next hour and a half talking about employee engagement and internal communications and committees and such. I do want to put a pin in the conversation now and say let's end here. For those still on the call, thank you for hanging out with us. I'm going to put another poll, or the production team is going to put another poll up on the screen. But Denise, I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us today, sharing your expertise, giving us a little bit of a window into what it's like to work for Freedom Forever and the amazing work that you and the team and the entire organization, because they give you the ability to make this stuff happen. I'm very excited for what's happening over in your organization, and I'm glad that they should be very happy to have you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. And I love working with you guys. So thank you.
Perfect. And we look forward to seeing what you cook up in the next coming year. This is fantastic. So there's a poll up on the screen. Feel free to answer it. And with that, thank you very much for your time and joining us today. And I wish you a wonderful and pleasant rest of your Tuesday, or end of the day if you joined from this side of the world. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.